I didn't mean to say it. The words just slipped out. It was one of those moments when everything inside of you, all the frustration, all the confusion, finally erupts. I didn't realize how much I had been holding in until I saw Mark's face change. Maybe your genes messed up our kids. I told him that. And as soon as I said it, I regretted it. It wasn't the kids. Not really. It was me. It was this life we had built, and it was the pieces that never seemed to fit together. And I think Mark knew that too. I could see it in his eyes. But instead of talking, instead of trying to understand me the way he used to, he just stood there. Quiet. Staring at me like I was a stranger. Eli had been acting out for weeks, months, maybe. He was becoming distant, rebellious, hard to handle. And Maya, poor Maya, she had started to unravel. The anxiety that had been so manageable before was now a constant shadow over her. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't focus. It felt like there was this invisible barrier between us. Between me and them. Between me and Mark. I had tried to fix it, you know? I'd read all the books, I'd taken all the classes, I'd tried everything I could think of to keep our family together. But nothing was working. And in that moment, when Eli slammed the door one too many times, when Maya burst into tears for no reason at all, I snapped. Maybe I shouldn't have said it, but in that raw, desperate moment, it felt true. His genes. That was it, right? It had to be. It couldn't be me. Could it? Mark stood in the kitchen, his arms folded, his expression unreadable. For a long time, he didn't say anything. The silence was thick, heavy, as if the weight of the words hung between us, waiting to be crushed under the tension. And then, in a voice I barely recognized, Mark spoke. Maybe you're right, he said, the words slow and deliberate. Maybe I did mess them up. But I think you messed up this too. His words hit harder than anything I could have imagined. I hadn't expected him to agree, but I also hadn't expected him to turn it around like that. For a moment, I felt this burning shame in the pit of my stomach, like I had done something unforgivable. I don't know what you want me to do, Rachel, he continued. But I can't live in a house where every problem is my fault. Where every single thing that goes wrong is blamed on me. You think I don't care about them? You think I don't want things to work out? Well, I'm done. I froze. What do you mean you're done? You think I don't care about our kids? He was louder now, his voice breaking. I do care. But you don't see it. All you do is blame me, day after day, for things that aren't even in my control. If you think I'm the problem, then maybe it's time for me to go. It was like a slap in the face. I didn't know what to say. He walked toward the stairs, and my breath caught in my throat. This wasn't happening. Not like this. What are you doing? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark didn't look at me. He just grabbed his jacket, walked into the kids' room, and started packing. He didn't shout or scream. He didn't make any more accusations. He just took the kids, and he left. I couldn't move. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, my hands trembling. Part of me wanted to run after him, to beg him to stay, to apologize for what I'd said, for everything that had led us here. But another part of me was exhausted. I was tired of pretending. Tired of trying so hard to keep things together when it felt like everything was falling apart. I heard the front door slam, and then there was silence. The house felt empty in a way it never had before. It wasn't just Mark that had left, something inside of me had cracked open too. I thought I'd feel relief, but instead, there was only this hollow ache. I didn't know if it was the right thing to do, but it was done now. He was gone, and the kids were with him. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the empty doorway. My mind was a whirlwind. Did I really think his genes were the problem? Was that really it? Or was I just desperate to blame something, anything, because I didn't know how to fix us? I didn't even know if I wanted to fix us. How could I, when every time I looked at Mark, I saw someone I didn't recognize anymore? When I finally pulled myself together enough to move, I sat down on the couch. The house was cold, and the silence was suffocating. I grabbed my phone, but I didn't know who to call. My friends? No. They'd been telling me for years to leave him, to stop making excuses for him. But leaving wasn't the problem. Staying, pretending like nothing was wrong, maybe that was. I glanced around the living room. The kids' toys were scattered on the floor, and the family photos on the walls felt like they belonged to someone else. Who were we now? Was this what we had come to? I hated this feeling. This feeling of being completely alone in a house that was supposed to be home. A house that felt more like a prison every day. But I didn't have time to dwell on that now. I had to figure out what to do next. How to get my kids back. How to make this right. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, but I knew one thing for sure, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And the truth? The truth was, I had no idea where the hell we went from here. The house felt colder the next morning, the silence stretching out like an unbearable weight. I hadn't slept much, how could I, after everything that had happened? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face, that look of betrayal and exhaustion. I had told him his genes had ruined everything, and in that one moment, it felt like I had ruined us. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, each second reminding me of the time I was losing. The kids were gone. And though part of me wanted to break down, to curl up and cry, I couldn't. I had to do something. I had to figure this out, even if I had no idea where to start. The first thing I did was call my mother. She picked up on the third ring. "Rachel, what is it?" "You sound awful," she said. Her voice was thick with sleep, but there was an edge of concern there. I don't know what to do, Mom," I whispered, my throat tight. "Mark left. He took the kids." I said something awful, and now they're gone. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, the hesitation in her silence. My mother was never one to sugarcoat things, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't sure if I wanted her opinion. But I needed to hear something, anything, that would help me make sense of this mess. "You need to go after them," she said finally. "You need to fix this. You need to get your family back." How do I even begin to fix it, Mom? How do I go back to what we were? I felt the tears well up, but I fought them back. This wasn't about me. This was about the kids. "I don't know, honey. But you need to do something. Your kids need you." I didn't have the strength to argue with her, so I hung up and sat there, staring at the phone. I wasn't sure where Mark had taken the kids, or if he was even going to let me speak to them. For all I knew, he might be shutting me out completely. It wasn't like he had ever been an open book, but this felt different. This felt final. The anger started to build again, sharper this time. How could he just leave? After everything we had been through together, after everything we had built, how could he just walk away with my kids like they were some kind of bargaining chip? I grabbed my purse and headed out the door, the cold air hitting me as soon as I stepped outside. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay in that house. I needed space, a moment to breathe, to think. I needed to get my mind off the mess I had made. But the more I walked, the more I realized there was no escaping it. No matter how far I went, no matter how hard I tried to run from the hurt, it was always going to follow me. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours, trying to lose myself in the rhythm of my steps, but it wasn't working. My mind kept returning to the same place, the same thought: what had I done? When I finally made my way back home, the house felt even emptier than before. The kids' toys were still scattered across the floor, and the faint smell of Mark's cologne lingered in the air. It was all wrong. Every inch of it. How had we gone from a family to this? How had we gotten here? I needed to talk to him. I needed to hear him say it, whatever it was. I needed him to tell me if he was really done with me. If I had truly destroyed everything between us. I dialed Mark's number, my heart pounding in my chest as it rang. The phone buzzed for what felt like an eternity before he finally picked up. "Rachel," he said, his voice colder than I had ever heard it. "Mark," my voice cracked, and I had to clear my throat. "Mark, please, can we talk? I need to understand what happened. What I said. I didn't mean it." "You don't mean it?" His voice was low, dangerous even. "You think I don't know what you meant? You think I don't know what you were really saying? You told me my genes messed up our kids, Rachel. Do you know how that felt? How much that hurt? I'm sorry." I stopped myself, knowing I couldn't take back the words. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I was angry. And frustrated. And scared. But I never should have said that. You know I didn't mean it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I thought he had hung up. But then he spoke again, his voice softer now, but still distant. "I don't know if I can just forget that, Rachel. You're right. I'm angry too. And I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix us." "I don't either," I whispered. "But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family." Mark sighed heavily. "I don't know what to tell you. I need space. I need time to think. I don't know when I'll be back, but I'll figure something out. I'll talk to you soon." And then he hung up. I stared at my phone, feeling the weight of his words pressing down on me. It felt like I was holding on to a thread that was slowly unraveling, slipping through my fingers no matter how hard I tried to hold on. But I couldn't let go. I couldn't. I sat down on the couch, feeling the tears finally come. I had lost them. I had lost him. The family I had worked so hard to keep together, was it all just gone? The thought consumed me, but I knew deep down that I couldn't stop fighting for them. I wouldn't let go. Not yet. I had to fix this. I had to make things right. Even if I had no idea how. I woke up the next morning with a heavy feeling sitting in my chest, the same weight that had been there ever since Mark left. The house was quieter than usual, the absence of the kids echoing through the halls. It felt like a void, a missing piece that I couldn't fill no matter how hard I tried. The silence was suffocating, and yet, I found myself just sitting there, staring at nothing in particular, unable to summon the energy to do anything. I had tried calling Mark again, but he didn't pick up. His voicemail greeting sounded just as cold as the last time. "I'm not available right now, leave a message." It stung. Each word felt like a reminder that he was no longer mine to reach out to whenever I needed him. The hours passed slowly, each one blending into the next. I made myself breakfast, ate in silence, and did a load of laundry, small, mindless tasks that kept my hands busy, but didn't do anything to settle the storm in my head. What had happened to us? How had things spiraled so quickly? I thought back to the night before, to that argument. The words I'd said. My accusation. Mark had been frustrated too, I knew that. The kids had been acting out, and we'd both been stretched thin. But my words had been too harsh, too cutting. I never intended to break him, but in that moment, I had. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Mark's reaction wasn't just about what I had said. It was deeper than that. Our marriage had been under strain for a while, maybe longer than either of us had been willing to admit. The cracks had been there, and when I made that careless remark, it was like I'd poured salt into an open wound. I couldn't stay cooped up in the house forever, not with the weight of it all bearing down on me. I had to do something. I needed to talk to him again. I needed to see the kids. But I had no idea where they were. I grabbed my keys and headed out, feeling like I was walking through a fog. It was still early, and the streets were mostly empty. The world outside seemed to be moving forward while I stood still, paralyzed by my own mistakes. My mind kept racing, going over every detail of the last few days. Was there something I missed? A sign that could have told me that things were falling apart? I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and sat there for a while, staring at the door. I wasn't sure why I was there. I wasn't even hungry. But the thought of sitting at home, alone, with nothing to do was unbearable. I needed a distraction, something to take my mind off the mess I had created. Finally, I decided to go in. The warm air inside the shop felt like a relief from the chill of the morning, but it didn't ease the tension in my body. I ordered a black coffee and sat at a small table by the window, watching the world outside. People came and went, couples talking over their drinks, friends laughing together. It all seemed so normal, so easy, and I couldn't help but wonder how I had gotten so lost in my own life that I couldn't find a way to fix it. I sipped my coffee, the bitter warmth running down my throat, and let my mind wander. Maybe I should call my therapist. Maybe I should go see a lawyer. But deep down, I knew what I had to do. I had to talk to Mark. And somehow, I had to make him understand that I was sorry, truly, deeply sorry, for the things I had said. But the question lingered, was it too late? My phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. It was a text from my sister, Julia. "Hey, I heard from Mom. She said you're having a tough time. You okay?" I stared at the message, unsure of what to say. How could I explain? How could I put into words what I was feeling, when I didn't even fully understand it myself? I don't know, Jules. I messed up. Mark left. He took the kids. Oh no. I'm so sorry. What happened? I hesitated for a moment before replying, my fingers typing out the words slowly. We fought. It was stupid, but I said something I shouldn't have. I told him his genes ruined our kids. And now everything's falling apart. Julia's response was almost immediate. Rachel, you know he's not going to handle that well. But don't give up. Maybe he just needs some time. Maybe you just need to talk to him. I don't know, Jules. I've tried. He won't even answer my calls. Well, then you're going to have to try harder. You can't just let this go. I read her message over and over, her words echoing in my head. I didn't want to give up. But the truth was, I had no idea how to fix it. I didn't know how to fix him or the damage I'd caused. What was I supposed to do when the man I loved had taken my children and walked out the door? I finished my coffee and sat for a little longer, staring out the window. The thoughts in my head were jumbled, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to get anywhere sitting in this coffee shop, waiting for a miracle to happen. I had to act. I had to do something. I left the shop, my mind made up. I was going to find Mark, wherever he was. I was going to tell him that I was sorry, that I would do whatever it took to fix things. I would beg him if I had to. I couldn't lose him. I couldn't lose my kids. I drove aimlessly, not sure where I was going. The streets felt empty, just like my heart. I had no clear plan. But something inside me was telling me to keep going. I had to make things right. It was my last chance. I couldn't let go, not yet. Not without a fight. I finally found myself outside his parents' house. My heart raced as I sat in the car, staring at the familiar house. It had always been a safe place for Mark and me. A place where we had gone during rough patches, when we needed advice or comfort. But I wasn't sure if it would still be that for me now. I took a deep breath and opened the door, stepping out into the cold. My feet moved on their own as I walked up to the front door and knocked. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe Mark wasn't even there. Maybe he was still keeping the kids with him somewhere else. But I had to try. I couldn't let this go without knowing that I had done everything I could. The door opened, and I saw Mark's mother standing there, her expression softening when she saw me. "Rachel," she said quietly. "I wasn't expecting you." "I need to talk to Mark," I said, my voice breaking despite myself. "I don't know what to do anymore. Please, can you help me?" I stood there, outside Mark's parents' house, my heart pounding in my chest. It was as if the whole world had stopped around me. I had been so focused on the need to make things right, to fix my mistakes, that I hadn't really thought about what would happen next. Mark was still out there. The kids were still gone. But as I looked at his mother's face, the expression softening, I realized something. This wasn't just about the words I'd spoken to Mark anymore. This was about me. My actions. The things I had done to get us to this point. I stepped inside without a word. His mother didn't say anything else either, but there was a shift in her. Something behind her eyes told me she knew how much I was struggling. She led me to the living room, where I sat on the couch, fidgeting nervously with my hands. "Rachel, I know you're upset," she began gently, sitting across from me. "But you have to understand, Mark, he's hurting, too." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I know," I whispered. "I never meant to hurt him. I never meant to say those things. I was so angry. And frustrated. And then I let my emotions control me." Her face softened even more, her expression now one of understanding. We all have moments where we let anger get the better of us. But Rachel, words are powerful. And once they're said, they can't be taken back. "I know that now," I murmured, my eyes filling with tears. I don't even know why I said that about the kids. I've always loved them. They mean everything to me. But I guess somewhere along the way, I lost myself. "You haven't lost yourself," she said kindly. "But you've lost touch with Mark, and maybe, just maybe, you've lost touch with the person you were before all of this." I stared at her, trying to process her words. She was right. I had lost touch with who I was. I had let the stress of everyday life, the frustrations of being a mother and a wife, cloud my judgment. And now everything was broken, shattered beyond repair. Or so it felt. Do you think he'll ever come back? I asked, the desperation in my voice impossible to hide. She sighed, glancing away for a moment as if contemplating her answer carefully. I don't know, Rachel. I really don't. But what I do know is that Mark loves his children, and he loves you. Maybe you just need time. Maybe he needs time. I don't want time, I said, my voice cracking. I don't want to wait. I need him. I need my family back. She reached across the table and placed a hand over mine, a comforting gesture that made me want to break down in tears. Then you need to fight for it. But Rachel, you also need to be ready to accept the consequences of your actions. Her words lingered in the air like a cloud, heavy and suffocating. I had been expecting a fight. I knew I had to fight for Mark and the kids, but now that I was here, in this moment, I wasn't sure if I could. I wasn't sure if I could undo the damage I'd done. I spent the rest of the afternoon at Mark's parents' house, talking to his mother and trying to make sense of everything. But deep down, I knew I had no control over what came next. I had hurt him, and he had taken my children. I couldn't change that. I couldn't erase the words I had said. I could only hope that somehow, in time, I would be able to make it right. Later that evening, after a long, quiet dinner with his mother, I left their house. As I drove home, I felt an odd sense of peace settling over me. The road ahead wasn't clear, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadow of my mistakes. I had to do something. I had to fix things, even if it meant letting go of the fantasy of everything being perfect. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a figure standing by the front door. My heart skipped a beat as I realized who it was. Mark. He was there. I took a deep breath and got out of the car, walking toward him with trembling hands. He was standing there, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. The distance between us seemed to stretch further with every step I took. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark didn't say anything for a long time. His eyes scanned me, looking for something, maybe answers, maybe a sign that I had changed. I didn't know. I wasn't sure if I had the answers he needed, but I had to try. I'm sorry, I said, my voice breaking. I'm so sorry for what I said. For everything. I never should have let my anger take over. I never should have pushed you away. He finally spoke, his voice low and steady, but there was a heaviness to it. You hurt me, Rachel. You hurt me in a way I didn't think was possible. I know, I whispered, my eyes filling with tears. And I can't take it back. But I can tell you that I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll do whatever it takes to make things better for us, for the kids. Mark looked at me for a long moment, and for a brief second, I thought he might walk away. But then he sighed, the tension in his shoulders easing just a little. I need time, Rachel. I need time to figure out what this all means. But I'm not saying it's over. A wave of relief washed over me, though I knew it wasn't a guarantee. Time. That was the word. It was what we both needed. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I wasn't ready to give up yet. And maybe, just maybe, Mark wasn't either. He reached out and pulled me into a hug, the familiar warmth of his embrace making me feel like I could breathe again. We'll figure this out, he said softly. But it's going to take time. As I stood there in his arms, I realized that this wasn't the end. It wasn't going to be easy, and I didn't have all the answers. But we would take it one step at a time, together. And that was enough for now.